Okay, so it being on or about 6:30, let's bring this meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission, July 25th, 2022 to order. In keeping with an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. This meeting is being recorded and available for playback later at time, audio and video by ECAT. Just for the sake of establishing quorum, we'll take a roll call, and we'll stick with me going last and everybody else in alphabetical order. So,
Albert Benson, present.
Ben Carroll, present.
Mike Spady, present.
Rory Caulfield's present. So seeing that we have 4 members present, we have a quorum and we will proceed. So first up is 37 Gilmore Road. This is a notice of intent for an upgrade to single family septic system. I believe this is Collins Engineering. And just for the record, we do have a butters notifications on all the new hearings tonight. There are 4 of them, so I just wanted to make that notice. Peter.
What's up, everybody? I'm gonna pull the plan up. 37 Gilmore is first, you said, correct?
Correct, yep.
How's this to start?
We can see it.
Awesome. You want me to jump right into it?
Jump right in, my friend.
Awesome. For the record, Peter Lyons with Collins Civil Engineering Group, representing the homeowner at 37 Gilmore Road. We're here tonight with a notice of intent relative to the repair of a failed residential septic system. Quick overview of the site. It's a pretty difficult site on the west edge of Gilmore Road. Basically, the lot was developed and more or less a filled-in wetland. So looking at the entrance to the site of the driveway, that's the only upland portion along Gilmore Road. So as you come into the site and approach the house, you have a wetland to the right. And then once you get into the backyard, you have the other end of the wetland, which basically wraps around it. So the site's kind of on a little peninsula. There's a delineated potential vernal pool to the southeast opposite from the site, and the associative buffer zones to that and resource areas are shown on the plan with the light blue lines. With this one, we were able to get not really favorable test pits, but we were able to find some soil off to the right side of the yard where the proposed system is. We encountered a bunch of fill and old stump dumps from the construction of the lot. So we have a high groundwater throughout the site, as indicated by the wetlands surrounding everything. What we're proposing is to abandon the existing septic system, which is in the front yard. There's a tank off the front of the house to a series of leaching trenches that will be abandoned in place. The tank will be pumped and filled. That's just at the 200-foot potential vernal pool buffer line with the existing tank. Site access, we're going to have to work around some existing trees and an existing retaining wall. That's going to be deconstructed, kind of regraded to allow access, and then rebuilt at the end of the project. So we're containing all of the work and access to the front yard. The system, the proposed work itself is going to be a new 1,500-gallon septic tank to a rather large 25 by 33 foot raised bed of plastic leaching chambers. The entire project will be surrounded by Sedimentation control line as shown on the plan, starting at the back house corner, going around the system. To help out with the grading and save a little bit of footprint, we have proposed a concrete block wall indicated by these little rectangles around the field. There'll be approximately 3 to 4 foot grade change at the northern end of the system. And that will match in pretty well with the existing grades of 148 at the house. So this is basically going to come off the house to a rather level area to the end of the field, and then it will drop down with the wall. The erosion control work limit line encompasses the removal of some yard waste in the northern portion that was dumped behind the fence. We've additionally shown a pile out by the driveway by wetland flags 3 and 4 to be removed as part of this project. The dark black circles along the existing wetland line and the tree line in the back are the proposed conservation post locations. Looks like we have, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we got 10 conservation posts proposed. We've also shown a proposed compost area. So the future occupants will stop dumping stuff in the wetlands. We've kind of chosen a location that's outside of the wetlands, but also, not in the middle of the yard. Rather convenient location from a conservation standpoint, and it's also usable for the homeowner. We show a dewatering pit location to the north of the field. A detail for that on the plan is a double row of hay bales with filter fabric woven between and underneath the pit itself. Typical sedimentation controls consist of a 12-inch straw wattle that's going to wrap around the whole project, including the site access in the front. We've got our typical wetland notes, keeping the site clean, pre-construction meeting required with the contractor. Yeah, I'm not going to read through all of them, but if there's any questions with those, I'd be happy to answer them. That's the rundown on it. I'll take any questions from the commission. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Yeah, the revisions to the plan were made, as Peter's already pointed out, and he did address the locations where there's compost within the wetland, and they found another location for that. So that's a good thing. Thank you. The septic is more than 100 feet from the potential vernal pool, so they're all set with Title V as well. Buffer zone signs were added to the plan. It does look like there's some additional clearing near wetland flags 21 and 22, the other side of the property, but it may actually not have been done by the owners. It might actually be done by the abutters. That's it.
Okay. Any questions from the commission?
A very minor question. Talk about a complicated site here. Just wondering why relocate the septic system? I don't have an issue with it as it is. I'm just kind of curious. Are there better soils back there? Trying to get out of the buffer zone for the vernal pool.
We got a couple reasons. What you guys would be mostly concerned about, is the buffer zones to the vernal pool. Obviously, we're trying to maximize the distance to the vernal pool as well as the regular BVW on site. Additionally, we're contending with a gas line that runs right through the front yard. We'd also be digging up the old system, which, that always kind of ends up in a mess. We'd be, with this one, we did have to get a couple, actually a long list. We got 5 variants or local upgrade approvals requests through the Board of Health. So we need to be 20 feet off of the foundation at a minimum. So that puts you basically out by where the trenches start and then would be going even closer to the wetlands. you'd end up with a big hump in the front yard rather than kind of build it into the mound that already exists off to the side. So we did consider that. Additionally, where the proposed location is, we're not going to be taking down any trees. It's an existing lawn area that's going to remain a lawn area. If we went out front, you can see on the plan that there are some major trees that, you know, we're going to do our best to work around. We should be able to access the site basically right over the gas lines and get into the back there. So a couple of reasons. Yeah, it helps us out with the separation to the resources. We don't got to dig up and replace the gas line. You know, those are kind of the major ones.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
Peter, it looks like you can certainly leave the trees for construction, but I'm not sure how you'll get trucks back there without pruning them. Is that something you want to add to the permit if it's needed?
Yeah, I was out here for the perk test. You know, we were kind of focused with just finding suitable soils at the time. So access through the front was kind of impossible at the time due to the fencing, which we proposed to remove. So when we were out for the perk test, we accessed through the backyard. We actually took a section of fence out. So I haven't personally, you know, sized up the amount of pruning, but I would anticipate that some would need to be done, yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask about, I noticed that one section of fence was already removed and why you hadn't considered going that way as opposed to the front yard.
As far as access goes, yeah, like I said, we were able to get through there with the backhoe, but dump trucks and everything, it's a very low site. The soils out there were pretty soft.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed the big ruts at the end of the driveway, but yeah, the machine was kind of sinking just getting back there. Additionally, we need to get a large like flatbed in to drop the septic tank. So realistically, it would be easier to do that through the front yard. It's a straighter approach to drop the septic tank and then any of the dump trailers required for the excavation, you know, and the importing of the new sand.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, any other questions from the commission? Any public comment for 37 Gilmore Road? Okay, so seeing none, Peter, I assume you want to close?
Yes, please.
Do we have a DEP number on this?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm looking at two different versions of forms here. Okay, so motion to close 37 Gilmore.
Katie, second.
Caulfield Spady, a second. Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye. So hearing's closed. Any further deliberation? Seeing none, make a motion to issue a permit for work and order conditions noting that the applicant may need to prune trees for site access, and that's included in the permit.
Carol, second.
Caulfield's Carol, second. Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye. Okay, next up is 24 Union Street. This is a notice of intent for an upgrade to a septic system. I think there's an error on the agenda that says a residential home. It's a septic system.
Yeah, you want me to take this one? The plan is up, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so as mentioned, this is not a new construction home. This is a notice of intent for a repair of an existing single-family home, corner of Union Street and Marshall Road. This is another difficult site, a little better than the last one, but this is a small lot, just under 10,000 square feet. We have a Mean high water line shown just behind the existing stone wall, being the left edge of the property. The 50-foot buffer is shown in orange. The 100-foot line is shown in the purple. Additionally, across Union Street, we have a mean high water and an associative BVW line. The proposal for this one, we are going to be replacing the existing failed septic components, which is a tank out here and a leaching trench with a pump system. So we're going to do a new 1,500 gallon tank, 1,000 gallon pump chamber, and a 22 by 37 elevated leaching field consisting of plastic chambers. This one will have erosion control or sedimentation control starting at the corner of the house and wrapping around the entire project and paralleling Marshall Road. Site access will occur through the existing driveway. We've shown a dewatering location on the plan just to the north of the proposed system. Conservation posts, we have 3 of them shown across the back, 2 to be attached to the fence and 1 to be set out in the front on a post. So we have our conservation post details, we got sedimentation control details, dewatering, along with all of our standard notes. 2 existing catch basins on the corner. We'll have silt sacks installed during the construction until the site has stabilized. The work is being done in an existing lawn area. Grade change of approximately 1.5 to 2 feet over the field. Soil stockpile area is shown between the house and the tanks if required. A little bit simpler of a design here, but still kind of tight due to the lot size. That's what we got for you. Any questions on this one?
Jennifer?
Did you say if this one had a liner or not, because it's closer than 50 feet to the wetland?
It does.
Oh, okay.
So we have a line of detail shown right on the plan here. Shown 5 feet off the chambers. So that wraps around the entire system, yes.
Thank you. And I think the only other comment I had was that you're referencing distance to the property line. So the surveyor needs to sign and stamp the plan as well.
Okay.
Any questions from the commission? So there were 2 things noted. One was there's a fence across the intermittent stream or stream. I don't know whether it's, can't tell because of the drought conditions. But there's an actual piece of fence across just before the outlet to the culvert. Yeah, right there.
South, okay.
So I don't know what that is. It's a sort of this standalone piece of fence.
I'm not familiar with it. Is it in the stream, maybe like a trash grate, or is it?
No, it's installed there. Now, I will say that that's not your client's property. But I guess that's something for us to sort of deal with separately. Jennifer's nodding her head at me.
Yeah, George had emailed back to say that it's not on the client's property.
So I would like to sort of note that across the street from here, which is also not the client's property, there is some obvious dumping of lawn debris going on. I would say that it is more likely than not that it is the applicant's debris. I don't have evidence of it, but if we could remind the applicant that right next to the sign that says no dumping or littering, there shouldn't be any dumping or littering.
So George answered that as well. He had spoken with the client. He said he's seen other people from the neighborhood doing that, and that I believe he had his materials are taken off site.
Okay.
That was the reply.
maybe we can get the rest of the neighborhood to also take them off site too, so. I think I'll put up a little camera to see what's going on. So, Mike,
That in our budget?
I'm sure we got one on loan from one of the commissioners we could do.
Remote monitoring.
Sorry. Okay, any other question? Any other questions from the commission? Any public comment, 24 Union Street? It says in your notes that the land surveyor stamp, they actually submitted a new plan. Is that the case or not?
Peter, do you know? I'm looking at the copy that I have with me. If not, a person on staff, so you could probably do it very quickly. Yes.
Yeah, no, it can definitely be done if they have not been submitted already.
Okay.
I know we've talked about that at the last couple meetings. So I don't know why it wasn't submitted with the stamp.
Okay, so we'll just condition that. So
Great.
make a motion to close 24 Union Street.
Carol, second.
Caulfield's Carol, second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye. Any further discussion? Seeing none, make a motion to issue a permit for work and order conditions noting that we need updated plans with the registered land surveyor stamp. I think that's it, and the other conditions as noted.
Carol, second.
Caulfield's Carol, second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye. Okay, I think that's it, Peter.
That's all I got for you. All right, thank you very much. We'll see you all next time.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Next up is 80 Blackbrook Road. This is a notice of intent for an upgrade to a septic system.
I think that's Jason.
Okay.
Is that correct? Jason, you can give us a thumbs up or something.
I am not a host, so I can't do anything.
You are a host now, sorry.
There we go.
Thank you.
I think it's Jason.
There we go.
All right.
Jason, are you 80 Blackbrook?
Yes, I am Jason Youngquist, Outback Engineering, here for 80 Blackbrook.
Can you just turn on your camera too, Jason?
I'm trying.
Okay,
It says it's on. Start video.
there we go.
There we go. Hello.
Hello. So you can share your screen if you want. Or I can bring it up, whatever's.
Doing it right now. Can you see that?
Yep,
Yes, we can.
All right. Would you like me to start?
absolutely. Just introduce yourself for the record and then away you go.
Jason Youngquist, Outback Engineering, here to represent the homeowner. We're doing a septic upgrade for the failed septic system. So we're actually just putting it right back in the same spot that it is. We're going to take out the existing system. There's a lot of remove and replace sand already underneath it, and we're going to utilize that after we test it to make sure it's still good sand. It's all lawn area off to the side of the house. There's wetlands along the back that have been flagged by our wetland scientist. So we're not cutting any trees or doing any disturbance into the wooded area. We're staying in the lawn area, staying outside the 50-foot buffer to the wetlands, and just putting in a new septic tank in a leaching field. Access will be right off Blackbrook Road, right in through the side yards. We don't have any trees in the way there. It's all lawn, so it should be nice and easy to access it. We're proposing some conservation signs along the back, along the tree line, and then we also have straw wattles for erosion control along the limit of work, all outside the 50-foot buffer to the wetlands. And that's about it.
Jennifer, short and sweet.
Yeah, do we have a DEP file number?
Yes, so that today. That came in today. It's 152-1748.
48, okay. Same as the last applicant. There is a reference to the property line, so we do need a surveyor stamp on that, please.
Yep, that is on there. See that? right
Okay,
here?
good, thank you. I know you made some plan revisions already.
Correct. Yeah, we put the surveyor stamp on there and then added in the straw wattles in place of the silt fence.
Okay, great. The wetland does contain a potential vernal pool. And so I think you're working with Board of Health on Title V requirements.
Correct. Yeah. So Title V requires a 100-foot setback unless you are hydraulically down gradient from the vernal pool, which we are. The water table that we found in our test pits based on existing water was at elevation 94 and the wetlands are up at around 99, I do believe. So we are hydraulically down gradient, which means you have a 50-foot setback.
Okay, and then did you want to address the compost in the wetland, please?
Yes, so I thought you had spoken to him out on site. So he was going to remove the compost that he'd been putting there, and he had shown, I do believe he had shown you a new location outside the wetlands, and so that will keep him from doing that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have heard.
That seems to be a common theme on these on these NOIs.
Yes. Any questions from the commission? So I think I just want to be clear about what this compost pile. It's about 5 feet high, maybe 200 square feet. So we're talking a pretty significant amount of compost that's on this peninsula going out. So it's not just he's going to remove some surface material and take it off, right? I mean, we got to remove that full amount of material that's been there. You're talking about, right?
Yes. And he is well aware of that, and I do believe he's already started trying to get some of that out of there as best he can.
Yeah, I think he's done some surface stuff. That was.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of reiterating. You're probably going to want to take one of the machines that's coming on site here and just go and scoop it out for him, because otherwise, I don't know how he's going to do it.
Yeah. If we can do that without just doing more damage than good, then absolutely. But would have been good to do it when we had the perk, because we had a nice mini out there with the rubber track and everything, so it wouldn't have chewed anything up. But we will work with him on that and get that all cleaned up.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. Any other comments from the commission? Any public comment? 80 Blackbrook Road. Okay, so seeing none, I assume you want to close.
Yes.
Make a motion to close 80 Blackbrook Road.
Second, Benson.
Caulfield's Benson, second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
ADI.
Caulfield's aye. And so any further discussion? Seeing none, make a motion to issue a permit for work and order conditions noting the large compost area located in the wetland must be removed from the wetlands.
Speedy, second.
Caulfield's with a Spadia second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Speedy, aye.
Caulfield's aye. Okay, Jason, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. You guys have a good evening.
Thanks so much.
And
Next,
91 Union Street does not have a DEP number yet. I just checked about 20 minutes ago on the site.
okay, thank you. Okay, so next up is 91 Union Street. This is a new filing. for 91 Union. They withdrew the previous filing. This is a new filing for a notice of intent for proposed apartment complex, access drive and parking, stormwater grading, utilities, and on-site wastewater treatment facility. We have Damian Dimitrick. I know I got one of those names too, Damian. So
It's a tough one. I completely understand. No harm, no foul.
we're just so used to having Mike that we just have no idea what to do without him. So
Yeah. Sometimes the same.
so just to note here, because we don't have a DEP number, we'll go through a presentation, which is what we normally get, but we won't be able to close, and we'll have to push it off till next meeting to
Okay.
make any sort of a vote for if we still have additional information we need.
Okay.
That presentation. So why don't you kick off what you want, introduce yourself for the record, maybe let me learn your name, and then we can go from there.
Damian Dimitruk with Conoco Engineers and Scientists, here presenting on the behalf of Black Edge LLC, the project at 91 Union Street. As Roy has already discussed, this project has already been submitted and brought in front of the board, but was withdrawn. And we're basically resubmitted exactly the same plans, no changes from what was before the board but at our last meetings. We're just trying, bringing it back. I think all of the problems and comments that Jennifer had previously during those discussions have been resolved. And the members of the board, I can pull up the plans. I can go through more information. I don't want to necessarily waste any time.
Nope.
It's easy enough for me to do that.
I think for the purposes of the new filing, we're going to have to go through this stuff again and
Okay.
Keep it to the level of detail you think is appropriate for the audience, and then we can go from there.
So everybody looking at my screen?
Yep.
All right, so I went straight to the main kind of complex drawing that shows the majority of the site. It's these two apartment complex buildings. Here I go, the site plan's a little clearer here, with associated parking areas, community building. We have snow storage areas, an area for disposal. Access road that comes behind the building for fire access. Wetlands are to the northeast of the site. We have French Pond to the northwest of the site. At the southern portion of the site, there's also another wetland. Dorchester Brook runs along the west of the site, out where almost all of the project is outside the riverfront there. There's a very minor amount of grading that we have in that area and some infiltration. There's going to be landscaping plantings that I don't have shown on this within the currently existing disturbed resource areas that will be mitigation and or refurbishment of those areas. We have stormwater systems that have gone through peer review and been discussed. We recently received the decision document, or the decision from the ZBA approving the project and the waivers required for the project as such. The majority of the site, the stormwater is captured and brought underground and recharged into the ground via these infiltration chambers. We've limited our outlets to two locations, one to the east of the site, another one towards the south, both exiting to the wetlands as shown. There's a small portion of the site that runs towards Union Street that was proposed as redevelopment area, as we're decreasing the total amount of impervious that will be running into Union Street. We've added a leaching catch basin in that area to help treat and make it better than the existing conditions in addition, to the greatest extent practical. We'll be having a large, we're in the process with DEP to resolve the groundwater discharge permit. We're going through the mounding calculations and seeking approval through them for the wastewater treatment facility, for the on-site septic and leaching fields. Those, we'll have a large treatment plant that will, clean the water much further and greater than any standard septic system, and we're just working through DEP. That's with getting that resolved. I think that covers the majority of the larger portions of the site. If there's any specifics, again, I can obviously help answer any questions. We're looking at 108 unit, 3-story buildings. And then-
Why don't you tell us a little bit about existing conditions on the site?
Okay.
What was the prior use,
Yeah,
previous disturbance?
yeah. So let me, a little laggy on my screen here, so I'll see if I can get there quickly. The existing site was formerly a concrete plant, contractor's yard. There's an existing historic building at the front of the site. Current use, I believe, is mostly contractor's yard. We were disturbed almost, you can see the tree line along the front edge, almost through the majority of the site here, through the project or the property limits. All of this interior area is paved or mostly gravel cover or poor grass conditioned. We'll be obviously pulling up all of that area, adding new landscape, demolishing most of the buildings. We'll be restoring and moving the historic building at the front of the site. There is additionally another home that will be demolished. That's part of the use as well. I want to make sure I touch base on everything. I think that covers most of it.
So additionally, one of the features, the construction features, is you have a pretty substantial retaining wall around the northeast and the southeast portion of the lot as well.
Yep. Yeah, that's this portion of the site along the edges. It's a lot. It's there. It says stormwater. The groundwater on the site is not low. So we have to, create the appropriate amount of separation for our underground infiltration chambers, as well as the soil absorption system at the front of the site for the large wastewater treatment plant and the discharge of the water there. And we got, to carry the grades towards the back of the site, keeping parking, reasonable and accessible by everyone, making sure that there's routes around the building for fire trucks, emergency services, allowing, access to those areas and the drainage systems to function properly. Unfortunate part of developing in Massachusetts is that, groundwater, we're at our limits as far as available sites for projects like this. I think this is a good transition from a used site that's currently already developed, turning it into a cleaner use residential area, a residential apartment complex that is much needed in Massachusetts, if you ask my opinion.
So can you just there's a couple other things I just want you to sort of call out, is like what are our closest distances to existing wetland resources?
Yeah, I believe those were shown. They may have escaped this plan. Oh, here we go. You can see it's difficult to see. Again, I apologize for the lag on my screen. Down at the, or up here at this upper corner as we're zooming in, we're about 10 feet off of the retaining wall is the closest proximity for that area. And I believe down here, right here, the 9.6 feet off of the edge of the wetland that is within the Brockton city limits. Mm-hmm. And the infiltration system and the majority of the grading for that is outside the 50-foot buffer for, again, the wetland system that is within the Brockton city limits. This lag is
driving you crazy.
Absolutely. If you haven't noticed, I've mentioned it a few times. And then down in this bottom corner here, this is another to the wetland G, I believe it is. We have 6.3 feet outside of the retaining wall to the edge of the wetland. You can see the riprap slope protection that was requested by the peer reviewer. That slope right there is a little steep. That's an existing area. That is an existing disturbed area. There's actually an old catch basin that will be removed, with a head wall and everything to that extent. So the riprap slope protection is there to, protect the wetland from additional scour in that area. Just want to make sure that no additional sediment or anything like that makes its way out. You'll still have a plunge pool for the initial outfall, but we just didn't want to have any scour in that area as it makes its way to the wetland. And I believe those are the closest locations on the site. The majority of the rest of the retaining wall is due to property line, and a lot of areas that are again previously disturbed. So we'll be repairing those areas or upgrading those areas as necessary for the project to be completed.
Okay. Jennifer, you or I, let you go.
I just have a couple things. Damien, can you go over the riverfront area compliance?
To what extent? Do you want me to show the riverfront area figures that were created? I might have to pull those up.
Well, you should be able to describe how it meets performance standards.
Okay, that's fine. So we are, for the majority, outside of the riverfront area. Given that it is a disturbed, an existing disturbed area, we are decreasing the total amount of impervious in that riverfront area, and the majority of the additional disturbance will be not to degraded form. We are under the 10% of disturbance for both the existing proposed area. The only impervious that comes close is this retaining wall in the back. You can see the edge of the river, 200-foot riverfront comes across here through the infiltration. Again, all of that area will be grassed, as stormwater features are allowed in that area. So to an extent, I hope that answers our compliance.
Oh, so what's the mitigation portion?
The mitigation here, I'll show you the existing site or the existing condition here. You can see that there's an existing one-story steel structure building in the riverfront area. We will be removing that portion of the building. Obviously, this entire structure will be demolished, removed. There's additionally concrete pads and degraded surface area, so that non-soil area in that location that will be again turned into grassed area, loam seeded, upgraded from the condition it is to a more environmentally friendly surface. But again, the more mitigation is the removal of this the steel structure.
So you're in the redevelopment section, correct? Of the riverfront section?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So grass doesn't really count as mitigation. So you have plantings proposed?
I believe so. I'm sorry if I am not as in-depth in this as Mike is. I know you and him have worked it out to a great extent and everything. I think some of those may have, he's on vacation, so it's trying to follow up for him. He's big shoes to fill.
Okay, I just have two more.
Yeah.
Were the soil tests done at the stormwater BMP locations yet?
There's been no additional test pits. Is that where you requested the question? Yeah, there have been no additional test pits to the test pits that were previously done for the site. I was trying to understand that comment to an extent. Are you looking to have them witnessed? Do you need soil and groundwater elevation should be confirmed by a soil evaluator? I mean, the test pit that I am a soil evaluator. I did that test pit. So those groundwater elevations and everything are
Okay, but under the
Provided that-
handbook, you have 2 test pits per location?
We do not have exactly 2 test pits. I mean, the whole site has been popped open with many holes throughout the site. They're not shown on this plan, but you can see, you know, test pit 5 was done under this infiltration system. These test pits, you know, we have plenty over here for these systems. You know, the soils were pretty consistent on site, so we typically go with that. It made it through the peer review. They didn't have any additional comment on that. If the board requires, we'll do such, but you know, we find that the tests on site were adequate.
So I think that one of the things we'd agreed upon previously was that we would get into full compliance with the soil and groundwater evaluation at least 45 days prior to the start of construction. So we had expected, given that the significant delay that's happened on this particular project, that by now that would have been completed. So that's where that's coming from.
Okay.
So I think that, yes, we do expect that, and maybe and leave it up to you. Maybe by the next meeting, we can make some progress on that.
Yeah, you noted that we were going to be continued either way. We don't have a DEP file number. I'll talk with the Blackledge with the client, and you know, see what we can do to get things out there. And if you guys require more test pits, you know, we'll make
It was agreed upon previously.
Yeah, I may have missed that. I'm sorry. That's fine.
Okay, the last thing is the draft stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Okay. Yeah, you know, I started to do some of it. It's very difficult to get a lot of it done, considering most of SWIP is scheduling and, you know, everything to that extent. Again,
Well, those are, you know, separate pages that people typically give right before they plan to start work. There's a good chunk of it that could be done.
Oh yeah, I understand. I've filled out a majority of them. Again, it's typically for us, it's something that we, you know, a contractor, you know, the guy that will be doing the site, that will be in charge of the stormwater pollution prevention plan, making sure that, you know, he's involved in the draft of that project. You know, we'd like to continue to suggest that the commission conditions it, but if that is something that is definitively necessary, then I can try and pull something together.
Yeah, the draft would be appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions from the commission?
One question. In the leach field, how far is that from the pond across the road?
The leaching field across from the pond, we're outside the 100-foot, you know, this distance right here. So yeah, you're looking at 125, 150 feet approximately, just from looking at the plan. I don't have a dimension shown.
Okay. One other thing, what if that septic system fails? What's your contingency plan?
It's currently designed with reserve areas in between each of the leaching trenches. So, you know, it's a trench system. You know, it will meet the standards. It'll have to go through all the processes. You know, I was outside, you know, on site with DEP doing test pits. They're required to witness it. We found very sandy soils at the front of the site that are awesome for soil absorption systems. You know, we'll have the minimum 4 feet of separation. You know, that all the perks were fine. And then, yeah, if it fails, there's reserve trenches between each of the proposed trenches to place the system right back in. But again, you know, the water that's going to be coming out of the wastewater treatment plant, wastewater treatment facility will be much cleaner than a standard septic system. You know, it'll look like water. It's not potable, but you know, it won't have any gray or murkiness to it compared from what I've been told.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other thing else from the commission? So the one thing, Jennifer, and I didn't, sorry, because I knew we were going to continue tonight. I didn't look at the order of conditions. There was one issue related to some off-site disturbance that was done years and years ago that the applicant had offered to clean up the concrete and whatnot that had been dumped there. I think we just want to make sure that gets into the order of conditions.
Yep.
Because that was agreed upon. It was an issue that was raised by a member of the public. So I do want to keep that on our radar.
Yeah, thanks.
So I see we have public comment here. So I will officially ask if we have any public comment for 91 Union. I'm going to recognize Elizabeth Pyle and she can identify herself. Ms. Pyle, you should be able to turn on your mic and video. There you go. How are you?
Thanks so much. Good. How are you?
Can you just introduce yourself for the record?
Thank you. Yes, my name is Elizabeth Pyle. I'm an attorney at Hill Law, and I represent David Howe of 7 Charles Way and Arlindo Romiero of 3 Emily Drive. And Mr. Romiero owns half of French Pond and is very concerned about the wetlands impacts associated with that. And he's concerned that his pond should not be contaminated by wastewater breakout or negatively impacted by this development. May I share my screen?
For what purpose?
I have a slide from our water resources consultant, Scott Horsley, that I'd like to share with you about the test pits that you were just mentioning before.
Sure.
Thanks very much. If you give me the ability to do that.
I have to stop.
It looks like I'm not able to do that. Tish, are you able to do that?
Any panelist should be able to share the screen.
Let's see if I can do it. Hold on a moment. Oh, here it is. It just popped up. Give me 1 second to find the right thing. Let's see, I am trying to make it work. Give me 1 more second. Let me try to get it in the right spot. Thanks for your patience. I'm sorry this is unusually not going the way I would expect it to. Let me try 1 more time. Let's see. I'm having a little trouble with it. Let me try 1 last time. I am not seeing it on there. All right. What I was going to say.
Can we make a co-host? Is that possible?
Who can share? It's already set to be all panelists.
Okay.
Okay. No, that's not.
I mean, you see this. You have the share screen button, right?
Yeah,
It's just,
I do. I have the thing that I wanted to share you open, but for some reason it's not sharing when I'm trying to share it. It's going. I don't see the right thing to click on. But let me just proceed. What I was going to say was that I just sent comments to the commission this evening that were previously provided to the Easton Zoning Board of Appeals about the wastewater and the hydrology issues that were provided by Scott Horsley, who's our water resources consultant. And I wasn't sure if the meeting was going to continue beyond tonight, so I wanted to submit things in the record. But you will see there's a slide there which shows in purple where the test pits, where the leaching fields are, and you see where the test pits are in relation to the leaching field. And you can see, as Agent Carlino mentioned, that there is only one test pit for two of the infiltration basins. And in the third, there are no test pits at all. So I'm very happy to hear that the commission is concerned with this issue. And we would very much like the commission to require compliance with the DEP Stormwater Handbook, Volume 2, Chapter 2, in which 2 test pits in the footprint of the wastewater treatment are required. And that's an important requirement. And we're very concerned that there's insufficient groundwater separation here. And the water elevation of the wetlands is on the applicant's plans is only 2 feet below the bottom of the infiltration basin. And it doesn't look like there's 4 feet of separation. So we're very concerned that all of these requirements be checked off and that the commission look at this. And although there was a peer review, the peer review did not address this issue. I don't know why. It was glossed over. It was not addressed. So we would ask that the commission make sure these requirements are followed. It is possible that more peer review is needed for this aspect of the proposal with the groundwater separation and with the number of test pits. So before the commission signs off on anything related to this project, we want to make sure that these components are in place. And we're very concerned about water quality impacts to French's Pond, which my client owns half of, and we don't want any breakout or effluent getting into the pond. And we're also concerned about the impact on Dorchester Brook. And in the correspondence that I sent to you earlier today, as the hearing was getting started, there's this information from Mr. Horsley where we're concerned that the groundwater going into the pond from the project site, the wastewater will be of such volume that it's more than the current volume of water that is in the brook now. So there's the potential here for more groundwater coming from the project site, more wastewater coming from the project site into the brook now than is currently in the brook under existing conditions. So we'd like you to look at this as well. And I expect that we'll have more comments for the next hearing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So just for future reference, and I know you're probably understanding at this point, it's best to try and get us those comments, with as much advance notice as possible.
At least a week before.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was not aware that the hearing was tonight. I checked on the 11th and I didn't see that it was scheduled for tonight. And I apologize for the late notice, and we'll definitely get that to you in advance of the next hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that your comments are noted, and I think as you have already identified some of the questions tonight are trying to address some of those questions and those unmet information at this point. So, okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to provide you with comments.
Thank you. Okay. I think we have another public comment. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to recognize Felicity Kagan. Ms. Kagan, you can turn on your video and your audio.
Okay, you see me now?
We can hear you, we can't see you.
Let me do this again. The green button, right?
No, it should be the second button from the left. Should say start video.
Chat. See, the problem is I'm on an iPad. Post will ask you to start video. Okay.
There you go. Perfect.
Got it?
Starting
Okay.
to get there, I think so.
My, I have to ask, okay.
There you go, yes.
My on? Okay. Damien, your company, Conoco.
Excuse me, just 1 second. Can you just identify yourself for the record, giving us your...
Bert Kagan, 75 Union Street. I
Okay,
own the land to the west, I own the land to the south and further south from Benson's all the way to the Plymouth, Bristol County wall. That is in my deed. That is in the Massachusetts Historical Commission information they gave me and the Easton Conservation Commission, Easton Historical Commission information. Now, Damien, your company did a soil survey of this area, analyzing the soil and the permeability of soil, correct?
Yeah, we performed test pits on site.
I just want to direct all questions to me,
Okay,
and I will try and sort them out and figure out when we want to bring the applicant in to sort of answer those questions. But this isn't sort of an open, interrogation of the applicant, but let's have the comments and then with questions, and we can see whether Damien is in a position to answer them.
the soil survey from Conoco cited areas in and around Boston and as far west as the west side of Worcester, Charlton, Paxton, Norwell to the east near on Route 23, 53 and Route 3, Whitman and Canton. The soil survey of Bristol County, Massachusetts, northern part, which everybody can read on the internet by the United States Department of Agriculture, cites the areas of Raynham, which is closest, all of Bristol County, which is closest to Easton. And it specifically says that the wetness and restricted permeability are the main limitations to use of this land. It goes on to say that permeability is moderately slow in the subsoil and slow in the substratum. Available water capacity is high. The water table is at or near the surface 6 to 8 months of the year, November through April. That includes French Pond, which I deem as a vernal pool. It rises up. The vernal pool in the back, southwest corner of my property, which is now part of the Easton Conservation Commission protection. And I can logically assume that Dorchester Brook will rise and the wetland behind the Blackledge 40B development will rise. There are, in the early spring, you hear spring peepers, fairy shrimp, frogs, all kinds of frogs, even hopping on my lawn. They also say that the water level is so high or near surface 6 to 8 months of the year that my backland, the back easterly side of my land, gets wet, that you can barely walk on it, and lawn tractors have to quit third week of October because it is the water table's high. The same with Graffettos next to me at 77 Union Street. So you can make a logical assumption that the water level in the south of Blackledge will be higher than it is. And they are proposing to put a rip wrap slope protection, drainage pipes, catch basins, all in around near the infiltration sites between the buildings and on the west side of the building and the east side of the building. And as you notice, the elevation of the land in the front is at 187 feet to 186 feet to 184 feet. And then it gradually slopes down to 180 feet in the rear, near that wetland on the southwest corner where they're putting their riprap slope protection and their plunge pool, which will catch a lot of the effluent. I had to look that word up, which basically in crude terms means the crap coming out from the drainage pipes to the back and eventually going down to the vernal pool and to the Dorchester Brook. The Dorchester Brook runs through my property, snakes through my property, through wetland on the south side and on southwesterly side, and through on the southeasterly side of my property is the Wildlands Trust. The Wildlands Trust lawyers are upset at the possible pollution, the blocking off the staircase that's heading down to an illegal road that travels 865.5 feet from the top portion of my land of 134.98 feet at the bottom of Blackledge to the stone wall of the Plymouth Bristol County, and it goes back 865 feet. His road has taken out walls and gone down the length of that wall of the Bristol County to his backland in the south of 33.27 acres. And Blackledge is apparently proposing to utilize this road and have put steps down there. The Wildlands Trust, in a letter March 25th of this year, had objected to the staircase going down, allowing 100 to 300 people going down his road down the easterly side of my property to his land in the south, and possibly going over to the wetlands, the wildlands on the south side. So I went to the assessor's office today and asked him about this new drawing of my border, which goes of my 12.49 acres, which goes right to, according to the Massachusetts Historical Commission and the Easton Historical Commission, goes right up to the border of Bristol County. But they have redrawn the border to make his road and the road that he had already been using from the bottom of his land to his land in the south, a strip of it along the rock wall of the Bristol County, wider. So it looks like it's almost as wide as Union Street. And they refuse to take down the steps, despite the Wildlands Trust objecting to it and me objecting to it, and utilizing land that I have paid taxes on to the town of Easton for 37 years.
Okay, let me try and unpack some of that. And so
Okay.
So if you just bear with me a little bit as I try and sort of sort through some of this stuff. So the concern is that the soil composition isn't being accurately represented.
I recommend everybody go to the soil, where is it, right here, page? Soil survey, it's right online. Soil survey of Bristol County, Mass, northern part. United States Department of Agriculture. It's right there. They talk about Rainham and the soil there, the high propensity for flooding, moderate drainage.
We see soil evaluations at every meeting. I mean, we're quite aware.
Go online and read that. It talks
So
very about
the second portion of this is some sort of elevation. Damien, is with the retaining wall, what's the elevation in the rear of the property?
Looking at the project, the very back corner of the property, the top of the wall is 181 and the bottom of the wall is 171.75.
So the existing conditions are 171.
Yeah.
Or 172.
Yeah.
So the other question I had is just the amount of potential runoff from the property. It was my understanding, and I don't know if you have the numbers in front of you. How much of the stormwater, and then we'll get to wastewater. How much of the stormwater is being retained on site?
So the peak flows of the stormwater, we are recharging and more water than is currently recharged on site. We're meeting the requirements per storm, right? The water isn't coming out of nowhere. It's from rainfall. So we are taking the stormwater that falls on our site that was previously there, and we are recharging it to an extent that it currently makes its way into the groundwater as shown, and we're reducing the peak flows. So the maximum at the highest point in time in which flows are coming off of the site, we're reducing those for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm. So there, in theory, more water will be put into the groundwater from stormwater that already, it's rainwater, it's already occurring. We're going to be recharging more of that on our site and adding it to the groundwater. as stormwater standards recommend, or is the standard that we have to do that. And additionally, the peak flows of surface water coming off the site are less than that of the existing conditions. Does that answer the question?
It does, yep. So the additionally, the treated wastewater, is that being retained on site, or is there potential that that could be make its way off-site into the Dorchester Brook or French Pond?
So that is a current process. I don't want to get too deep of it because that is going to be approved by the DEP, their stormwater site. So what we do is they do a large mounding analysis. We're going through that process now to ensure that no mounds get to, or none of the mound of the additional water that's coming into the surface, that mound doesn't cause breakout within the wetlands, the French Pond, to additional stormwater septic systems. We're working through that with DEP currently. They're the approving authority. They're the ones that are going to make the determination on all of that. Again, we're working with them to resolve any issues that they will have. But that stormwater or that wastewater will meet all of the requirements by them. They were on site. There's a mounding analysis. We have to go through the geohydro with them first. That ensures the break, a concern of breakout. It's not necessarily that, but for easier terms, a breakout to the wetlands or to French Pond. By the time the water, reduces in its mound, it'll reduce to those extents, those limits. There has been concern and discussion, it's come up with the Scott Horsley letter as well a couple of times about the increased amount of flows. Scott Horsley has mentioned a few times that the water flowing from our wastewater treatment facility will be that greater than the current condition of Dorchester Brook. I am not, I asked that he rechecks the numbers there because, if you break down the groundwater discharge of the site, so the 19,000 gallons per day, that works out to about 0.03 cubic feet per second. A garden hose is more than that. So I don't understand, how we come up with numbers that the brook is flowing less than that of a garden hose. I don't think that flow, it's over a course of a period of a day, it's 19,000 something gallons per day.
So
it breaks down to a very small amount of flow that will actually be entering, into these systems compared to what actually happens in real life.
So the stairs at the back of the property that go down the back of the retaining wall, what is the purpose of those stairs?
As we've beaten to death, the retaining wall is really high. That's not ideal. The reason it's so high is because there's groundwater and we need to create the appropriate separation for our infiltration and our leaching field facilities, all based off of our test pits. Those stairs are for access in case of emergency, someone to fall down there. We need to get back to do inspections for the flared end sections, that riprap, make sure that everything's maintained. There's an ongoing O&M plan to make sure that these, that's going to be maintained by the facility manager, making sure that all of these things are checked, they're functioning properly, that there isn't outflows, illicit discharges or anything of that extent that we don't want to happen. So those stairs are, for access to check those facilities to ensure that they're all functioning properly. And then, emergencies, there's a high wall. We need to be able to get to the back of the site without having to go, through, the woodland area, the brush that is, outside of our retaining walls.
So the limit of work is currently, is that up against what is the boundary of the property boundary, or does the property line go further beyond the current limit of work?
No, from my understanding, the owner, Blackledge LLC, doesn't own outside of the property line.
Right. So
Retaining wall is pretty much on the property line, maybe a couple feet off.
That was my impression as well. So is there any intention to utilize I mean, I see a limit of work on here, and obviously you're not supposed to go beyond that. And so there's no intention to utilize any existing pathways or that were created by a prior owner, correct?
No, there's no intent. I mean, besides the removal of concrete that was requested, right? We're going to remove the nefarious materials that are off-site as requested by the Wildland Trust, and any materials that we find out there. But outside of that, no, there's no intention for additional access back there.
Okay. Ms. Kagan, you had raised your hand. You have a follow-up?
Yeah. Why don't you take a look at the latest maps.publicworks.easton.mass.us? It now has redrawn the line of the southern part of Blackledge, supposed Blackledge area, in my land, taking out land. I don't know if you could see it in the dark, but taking out land, a strip along the Bristol Plymouth County wall, which is, according to my deed, according to Massachusetts Historical Commission, Easton Historical Commission, it's my property. What goes right up 132.98 feet to the stone wall.
Just as I think that's just a little outside of our jurisdiction. I mean, you're actually talking about things that I have no jurisdiction over. I'm not even quite sure of the regulations because it's outside of my jurisdiction. So I think you should raise those issues to the appropriate.
I have already consulted with the assessors who are talking to Leon in the Public Works Department. One other thing is that Richard Lincoln suggested in an earlier article this year that he would not use any salt, rock salt, on the roads because of its proximity to the wetland. However, having lived here for 37 years, I have witnessed during the months of January, February, March, Union Street become black ice. Our driveways become black ice. One time a car was speeding down here from Brockton, did a flip and landed upside down on a stone wall. He didn't have any car insurance. So, this is what you're dealing with. And he says we're not going to use any.
Ms. Carlino, if we condition not using road salt on this, is that part of our draft?
I don't recall if it's part of the draft or not.
Okay, so I don't.
If you do use road salt, the road salt will get down to Dorchester Brook, which will flow down. And I understand that Easton wants to use the southern part of the land, the Easton Conservation Commission land, for possible sites of future wells. We put a well out in the southwest corner of our property 37 years ago. It drops down to 600 feet. We haven't used it in 30 years. I'm divorced from my husband, but the water at 600 feet was analyzed by a Bourne water quality place. It was perfectly beautiful hard water at 50 gallons a minute. And it was a geyser of water that went up from a simple pipe. And what I'm telling you now is that my land south of me, Benson's land, the Easton Conservation Commission, is a beautiful site for future wells and for the town of Easton. When Gary Lane, when Washington Street wells, when they all eventually dry up in 50, 100 years, that's your second area to get well water for the town.
Noted.
So if you start polluting that with blackledge, all bets are off. The effluent and the salt, the oil, gas, the Lysol drain off, pesticides, fertilizers will all be traveling down Dorchester Brook and will basically wipe out that ability to use the water. The underground rivers, they run from 100 to 800 feet deep. This river is 600 feet deep. High water pressure.
I have noted it, so.
Okay. So that's all I have to say. It's about that strip of land taken off, the staircase going down the east side.
I appreciate the comments tonight and appreciate.
And read that's soil survey by the United States Department of Agriculture. And it talks about Rainham to get the quality of water, the problems with water and soil surveys in this area.
Very good.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any further public comment for 91 Union? Okay, so seeing none, Damien, we'll continue to August 8th.
August 8th, okay.
So,
Will that be enough time for the soil samples for you, Damien, and the SWIP?
I'm going to try. I will let you know if that will not be able to happen, but I assume, we will be able to. I don't see it.
so Jennifer will need that by next Monday, 8/1.
Next Monday, 8/1?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, it's a matter of coordinating, making sure I can get an excavator out there, making sure, having somebody or pulling together the SWIP as quickly as we can. We'll get on it.
Make sure you use the most recent template.
Yeah, no, we had to go through a lot of those.
Thank you.
So make a motion to continue 91. I'm sorry, is there any other further comment from the commission? You know, we unpacked a lot there in the last 20 or 30 minutes. So. Okay, so seeing none, so make a motion to continue 91 Union to August 8th.
Second,
Carl, second.
Benson with the second. Roll call vote.
Vincent, I.
Carol, I.
Beatty, aye.
Paul Fells, aye. Okay, so very good. Next, thanks, Damien. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next up is
19 Emily.
19 Emily Lane. This is a request for an amendment to an existing permit.
Roy, just to note for the record, I'll be abstaining from the discussion and the vote.
Noted.
So you're recusing from this hearing?
Probably a better way to put it. Thank you. Just conflict of interest, full disclosure.
Thank you.
Mr. Diaz, will you introduce yourself for the record and give us a little update on where we are?
Yes, for the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering Solutions. Here tonight representing Rudy Daji at 19 Emily Drive, Emily Lane, excuse me. This is a notice of intent that you guys approved back in 2001, around November. We've come to a point where we've got a couple of things, a number of minor things in revisions that we want to make, but this, I think in and of themselves, they're each pretty non-threatening, but you put them all together and it was just more than we wanted to pick up on an as-built at the time for a COC. So we wanted to come back before you with a request for an amendment. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and I'll just walk briefly through what the changes are. Can everybody see the screen?
We can see your puppy dogs. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so this is the plan that you approved back in, I think it was November or December of 2013, 2021, excuse me. So we're proposing a garage in the back, a pool in the middle. Everything is kept outside of the 50-foot buffer zone by design. The way we're going to access the garage in the back is we were planning 2 strips of cobblestones. They're designed to mimic the treads of the tires, and in between them is going to be just a grass surface. So the idea is that we're making things very much pervious so water can still get into the ground. Leading through this way, this access drive to the garage is going to wrap around the house. There's a retaining wall on both sides of the access drive that I think you folks conditioned that you wanted to see a design on before it was installed. Then that goes to a gravel patch in front of the driveway, in front of the garage, and then into the garage. So what we have changed is the following. Well, what we're asking to change, I should say, don't let me be presumptive here. So this is the same view of an updated plan. So I'll start at the driveway and work my way back. So what we'd like to do now is add a turnaround at the driveway. This is going to be a cobblestone turnaround. there is just a little bit, you see this yellow line here, that's your 100-foot buffer zone, okay? This is located entirely in grassed areas in the outer 100-foot buffer zone. By comparison, this is your 50, the red line here. So we're at about the 90-foot, 85-foot within limit of our proposed cobble turnaround. From there, we're going to keep our 2-tire track situation until we get to the side of the house. And then we're going to have an operational ornamental gate, so we kind of hide things from the road. This goes back down to a sloped driveway. We did some research and we shot some more grades in the field and realized that we're actually able to do this without the retaining wall. We are proposing a geotextile mat that we did give a specification on once we transition through the ornamental gate. So from the surface, this is just going to be grass. The geotextile mat gives it a structural base that we can drive on without creating erosion and sedimentation problems or rutting or anything like that. It's going to be outlined by cobblestones on each side to delineate the pathway. And then coming back to the garage, rather than having a gravel portion in front of the garage, we're proposing to have a cobblestone portion in front of the garage. That is, again, to stop from, to help from erosion, possible rutting, turning of cars, things like that. The last thing that we're proposing around this entire thing, starting at the house, coming through the corner, around the entire limit of work, and then coming all the way back to the house, is a fence. That's going to stop the, obviously, help isolate us from the buffer zones and vice versa. So to summarize, we even put a note on the plans. They talk about what we're asking for, and I'll just summarize very quickly. Cobblestone turnaround at the driveway, cobblestones in front of the garage, retaining walls on either side of the driveway have been removed. Access driveway to the garage has been updated with a Celtec geotextile support and a 5-foot chain link fence around the proposed limits of disturbance. And that's it. Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
That's okay. I haven't said anything yet, so.
Yeah, I thought I saw you going.
Jennifer, you want to give us any comments before I jump in?
Just real quick, did you have the spec sheets for the Celtec?
We provide a detail here. I do have the spec sheets. We can certainly get them to you, but basically this is the manufacturer's detail of what they, of the installation, what they do, all of that stuff.
So what's the maintenance on it?
Maintenance on it, you set it and forget it, basically. Set it and forget it, and as long as you're not experiencing rutting or any erosion issues, you don't have to think about it again.
Okay, then if you can scroll back up to the house.
Yeah.
So right, yeah, between the house, the new driveway, and then the left lot line, is that slope something steep enough that you would need erosion control blankets, or you're confident you'll stabilize that with hydroseed or something?
I'm confident that we can stabilize it with hydroseed. Honestly, I don't have in front of me exactly what that slope is. I think it's something like 4-to-1, maybe 5-to-1.
Okay.
So I think we're okay there, but certainly if there's a need, we don't take an issue to putting a blanket down to help it out, especially during installation until the vegetation takes hold.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
So two comments to start. One is, Mike, you got to reach out to Carol. We got one of these Celtec projects in front of us. She wanted to do this 2 years ago. This stuff is plowable. Okay.
I wanted to ask if you had a picture, if we could see it, but
I can certainly provide the spec sheet on it, and I should have. I apologize.
no worries.
Go back to the detail here. It's a very thick woven plastic.
Okay.
It goes into the ground, and it gets, you intersperse it with your aggregate in your topsoil mix, in the soil, and the grass just grows right up through it. I've seen these and similar products used for emergency access for fire trucks in the past.
Interesting.
So that was my first comment. So, because we've been talking about this for probably 2 or 3 years at least. The second issue is, what is the change in impervious cover between the old plan and this plan? Because we're replacing a lot with cobblestones, and I don't know if you're considering that to be impervious, which it's probably impervious for about the first 6 months or a year, and then it doesn't necessarily act that way. So.
Sure. So what I've considered, this area in the back, let's start there in front of the garage, that area square footage didn't change. And we actually considered that impervious before, even though it was gravel, because we recognize that in time you back over this thing, it's not going to take water. And so we're considering the cobbles to be the same way. So no increase in net impervious there. So really our only increase in impervious area is this area of the circle here, which is currently lawn, which is within the 100-foot buffer zone. And I think that comes out to roughly 1,000 square feet total.
Did you say you had a table somewhere on here?
Yeah, we do. Well, that's not going to do it. We have this very complicated table up here that talks about the change in Cobblestone Drive, 1,900 square feet, impervious. So forgive me, it's not 1,000, it's 1,900 square feet.
Okay, so really the ask here is in exchange for not putting in the retaining walls, which are impervious, that we're exchanging it for the cobblestone drive out front, and the disturbance caused with installing the fence. I mean, I think that's the ask.
I think that's the ask. The other thing that you could note is, if you look, and I haven't done the math on this, but just practically speaking, if we consider the cobblestone drive that we had before going all the way to the back, now being removed in favor of the Celtec product that allows the water to just go through, there's probably some offset there where we're losing a little bit of impervious that was proposed there too. Not enough to get us back to zero, but a little bit anyway.
Yeah, and then you've got the cobblestones on the side of the road as a delineator.
Yeah, we could nitpick it to death, I suppose. I'm swinging for the fences here.
Okay, so it's about 1,900 feet, but it's offset somewhat by maintaining a more naturalized area in the back without the retaining walls. I mean, that's as I see it, and installation of a fence. So,
yeah.
Any questions from the commission, Al or Mike? So our I don't know if you saw it in your packet. Jennifer gave us an incredibly useful flow chart here. It's the first thing we have to choose is whether or not we believe this amendment is minor and is within the scope of the original project, right? And at that point, we decide, if we say yes to that, we say, do we need to issue a new order of conditions, or do we need to issue amended order of conditions? I think Jennifer has given us some amended order of conditions if we choose to say this is a minor modification. If we don't think it's a minor modification, we would request that the applicant submit a new NOI for the work that he's proposing. So, that's the discussion that we have. Mike, Al, do you have a thought process here that this is a minor modification to this permit?
I don't think it's that significant.
No,
Okay.
I think it's not significant either. I mean, I'm
Okay,
pretty happy with what's going on, so.
So I think, considering the scope of the project, I think it's minor enough for us to do this. I think we likely would have considered approving this up front had it been proposed to us. So that's sort of part of my, when I think about these things, is what I've considered up front, and I would have, and I think that Mr. Diaz has probably given us the worst case scenario is that the change in pervious at 1,900 square feet. I think it's actually less than that. I don't think he's taking credit for everything he needs to. So maybe he's really at his 1,000. So maybe his 1,000 was right. So, so I think I'm okay with looking at this as a minor mod. I think there's some amended order conditions that Jennifer has proposed already. And I think, you know, getting the details of the Celtec product in our files for this and making sure that if there is maintenance required, that it's done, and we include that as an order of condition. So I think that I actually don't think there is. I think Mr. Diaz is correct. I think it's a literally install and go type of product. So before we vote, just any public comment on 19 Emily Lane. Okay, so seeing none, I'm going to make a motion to approve the minor modification with the order conditions, noting that we need the spec sheets on the Celtec, and if any maintenance is required, that we shall follow, the applicant shall follow the manufacturer's guidelines.
And close your hearing.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Make a motion to close the hearing first. Then we'll
Spady,
go.
second.
Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Ben's recused, so you're up, Mike.
Oh, right, sorry. Spady, aye.
Callfell's aye. So 3-0 to close. Make a motion to approve the minor modification to the permit with the amended order of conditions, noting the applicant shall provide the manufacturer's spec sheets on the Celtec, and if any maintenance is required, the applicant shall follow the prescribed maintenance.
Spady, second.
Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Spady, aye.
Callfell's aye. So it's Callfell, Spady at 3-0.
Great. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night, guys.
Next up is 170 Chestnut Street. This is a continued hearing, abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. They are finally before us again. Frank, you're up. I don't know if you want me to bring up anybody else.
Yes. Yes, if you could, I believe Deshang Wang was going to be appearing as well.
Promoting to Shang as well. Thank you. So I don't know who's going to present, but if you guys could, one of you introduce yourself for the record, and the other one, if they speak, would introduce himself for the record as well.
For the record, I'm Frank Reiblin with Reiblin Land Surveyors. This is a project that has been before the board for a considerable length of time now. It's a large acreage site with many, many wetland flags. There's numerous resource areas on the site, including 2 potential vernal pools, wetlands, intermittent streams. I believe that the agent, Jennifer, has spent a considerable amount of time walking the site. She has come back with comments several times, and she has added some flags or requested some flags be moved. She's also requested additional information. I believe at this time, to my knowledge, we have supplied all of the information that she has requested.
You have, yes, thank you.
Certainly prepared to hopefully respond to any questions that Jennifer or the commission or abutters may have.
I don't have any other, thank you.
Any questions or comments from the commission? So just as before I go to public comment on this, Mr. Reiblin and Mr. Wang, I just appreciate your follow through on this. I know it's been a long journey for everyone, and I know the applicant as well. We'll be happy to put this behind us so we can get on to the next stage of this. But I do appreciate your diligence on this project, so that we can all come to the conclusion that we all wanted to start with. So I do appreciate that. So I know it's been a strain for all of us to get to this point. So Any public comment for 170 Chestnut Street? Okay, so seeing none, make a motion to close the hearing. I assume you want to close, Frank.
Yes, please.
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Carol, second.
Caulfield's Carol, second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye. So 4-0 to close. Any further discussion? Seeing none, make a motion to issue an order resource area delineation at 170 Chestnut Street.
Carol, second.
Caulfield's Carol, roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye. There we go. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Next up is 530 and 550 Turnpike Street.
They've requested a continuance to 8/8.
So the only thing I just want to note here is that we did get a public comment. I just want to get it into the record. Mr. Heath, Charlie Heath. Just trying to find it here.
Sorry, Roy, this is for 530 Turnpike?
It is. So Mr. Heath wrote us on June 28th and just commented, I would like the committee to propose 530, 550 Turnpike to donate remainder of land to Mass Wildlife after completion of the project. Charlie Heath Jr., 63 Depot Street. So I just wanted to get that comment into the record. Motion to continue 530, 550 Turnpike to August 8th.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye. Okay, so next up is 534 Washington Street.
They've also requested a continuance to 8/8.
Okay, make a motion to continue 534 Washington Street to 8/8.
Spady, a second.
Also Spady, a second. Roll call.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye. Next up is 560 Foundry Street. We have Megan Dutra from Conoco.
Ask, thank you.
Do we need to get you dinner or something, Jennifer?
They're being so nice. They brought dinner down to me.
That's awesome.
It's very sweet. Yes.
That's awesome. So we have Megan here with us. And so Megan, I don't know, you're a new face to us, so why don't you introduce yourself for the record and then we can go from there.
Hi, I'm Megan Dutra from Conoco, registered EIT, representing Rick Lincoln and Sawmill Village LLC for 560 Foundry Street for the Pro Sawmill Village. I've been the engineer who's been working on the design for the project. I'm here filling in for Mike Toohill today as he's on vacation for the next 2 weeks.
Those are some really big shoes, my friend.
Definitely.
So I think that the first thing maybe we could start off with is whether you had any new information that you wanted to provide to us. If you don't, I just wanted to go on record whether or not you had new information for us.
I believe the last thing that really was that we were working on was basically working through some issues Jennifer was having with the numbers we had provided for impact, which I think largely Mike and I previously Lori had found that it might have just been an issue of perhaps like we hadn't provided Jennifer with the correct plan set in time because it seemed like her impact numbers had were looking at Rev 5 of the plans versus Rev 6 at the time. We've also since submitted Rev 7, which had 2 minor edits. I can go over those for you if you'd like. One of them was to update the impact for the sewer connection to the sewer pump station on the east side of the site. We had kind of been working through some, I guess we were just kind of in a little bit more coordination with Public Works on that. So we hadn't previously shown the limit of work going around where we currently show the pipe connecting to an existing sewer manhole on that sign, but we've updated that. And then the other revision was that previously the total riverfront area that we had mentioned was off by, I believe, 7,247 square feet in the 150 to 200 foot riverfront area range, which that was just a piece that had been left off on the west side of the site north of the vernal pool that just had been missed during the calculations. It wasn't being impacted, it was just part of the total site.
Okay, hopefully that hopefully those numbers. So I think that one of the things is that is something that's going to have to get settled prior to us coming to a conclusion on this. And I think that it's going to be best for Jennifer and Mike and you to get together and make sure that everyone's counting all the same things. Now, Jennifer's in the same position as Mike. She's off for 2 weeks. The first chance she's going to get is our next available hearing date, which is August 8th. So I don't know that she's really going to have time to do that. But
so we, Stephanie Danielson and I have a meeting with Rick that week when I first come back, within a day or two. And I think we had suggested, either you or Mike or whoever come down and we literally just look at the maps, at the plans together to make sure that we have the right numbers. Yeah,
it's a matter of, I don't think the numbers at this point are more about getting the right numbers on the forms in the plan, so we understand the disturbances in the impacts that are happening in the buffer zones in the riverfront area. So I think that's our only concern here. I'm speaking mainly for myself, but I think probably the commission as well. So I think that it's a matter of making sure that everything's buttoned up before we wrap this thing up. I mean, that's really where we are. I think the one thing, do you have anything else, Megan? Are we?
No, I believe that's it, unless you do you want me to pull up really quick just that what we had changed for that sewer connection?
I do not want you to pull it up.
Okay.
But because we have a lot to get through. So one of the things I'd like to do tonight is allow us to get through the waivers. So there are 9 areas where waivers are requested. There were 7 waivers. 2 of them were combined on the riverfront area. Both waivers were combined on 1 waiver request, and both buffer zone waivers were on 1 buffer request. So I would like us as a commission to go through each one. I'll say which waiver we're looking at. We can then have any discussion about what it is. One thing I do want to talk about here is that, remember, from a waiver requirement, we're talking about no practical alternatives, right? Then the alternative analysis was done. And I think that we've all seen the alternative analyses that have been done on this particular project. I mean, it started out as a 70 plus, unit, and all the way down to 42 or 44 at this point. I can't even keep track. And even the last 2 that came off were because of concern we had in one particular area to decrease the impact. So I think we can't ask, the only alternative that's potential right now is a no-build alternative, and that's not really an alternative, right?
Correct.
The other thing is no significant adverse effects. And I think we should talk about this when we talk about the waivers. That's the one that there's probably going to be most discussion from my side. The third thing is the public interest, right? And so I just do want to, because they're very repetitive about public interest, so let's just sort of get that out in the open right now. that the public interest for this particular project, and considering the scale, understand this, right? So they're going to donate 11.53 acres to the town, and this does abut the existing conservation land, as well as a continuity of across the street to Old Pond and New Pond. They're going to put in public parking access to the conservation land, our conservation lands that are south of this property. Okay, they're going to daylight that stream by removing that culvert, and they're also going to cap off the other diverting culvert that decreases the flow during low flow portions of the year. They're going to contribute significantly to the sewer betterment fees for the sewer that was put in right outside of there, right on Foundry Street. Increase the housing diversity in the town, and also significantly, they're going to put in a traffic signal at the end of Quanticut and Foundry. Okay, and they're going to change that traffic. They're going to put an extra turning lane in there as well. So, so that's the public interest. I think that we can agree that there's significant public interest there. And then, so when we evaluate the waivers, you know, alternatives, adverse impacts, public interest, right? Okay, so we're not gonna spend 20 minutes on each one of these waivers, okay? Hopefully we'll have read them. It was an interesting Sunday afternoon for me. And that we can get through this, and because then this is like the last part of this. Once we come to some discussion about the waivers and answer whatever questions we have on there, then we get down to these little tiny little things that are left there. There's nothing more to be presented to us. Then we have to come to a vote, right? So we're not going to, I don't think we're in a position to vote tonight, but because of the differences in the calculations that we need to get to, let's get everything else wrapped up, okay? Even without Mike here. He's probably gonna watch tomorrow. Okay, so the first waiver up here is a waiver for the bordering and isolated land subject to flooding. And so this is the impact of fulfilling a portion of the Beaver Brook on the eastern parcel, where they where they're going to daylight the metal pipe, and also work within the Mulberry Brook bordering land subject to flooding as part of this project. So there's a long discussion here about alternatives. It's the same on any waiver request. I think one of the things that we should recognize here in that each case, where there's been disturbance, there's been mitigation or replication in other portions, or specifically in the portion, a significant amount of impact has been offset by the daylighting of the stream. To be honest, they actually have to have a waiver to daylight the stream, right? They actually have to have about 3 waivers to daylight the stream. It's riverfront, it's land underwater, it's bordering vegetated wetland, land subject to flooding. So they're all over the place. That particular thing is going to take it. But now I think we can all recognize that that's a very positive thing. That's actually one of those things where the negative impact is offset greatly by what the result is going to be. Right? We got wildlife habitat increase. We've got increase in diversity for the wetlands. They're going to replicate a significant portion of the wetlands there. So that's the big disturbance. The other disturbance is the crossing over the Beaver Brook up at the top of the property. But again, they've minimized as much as possible. I think they do about 800 square foot of disturbance there, but they're replicating it at about 2.5 to 1 up near the top as well, and as far as increasing the wetland there. So I think that from my perspective, I think that this one meets the waiver requirements. So, any comments? I see nods. Okay. So if there's no questions, we'll move on to the next one. Each one of these waivers is about 16 pages, so give me a second. The next waiver is for inland bank. And again, we talked about this. This is a temporary alterations to the bank of Beaver Brook when constructing wetland replacement area A and constructing the bridge over Beaver Brook and the removing of the 175 linear feet Beaver Brook culvert and constructing a new Beaver Brook channel and bank. Once again, I said these were going to be all over the place, right? So, you know, this, I think we talked about, you know, Rick showed us the table. There's about 400 linear feet of bank that gets disturbed, but that's 175 times 2. And then the little bit at the entrance to where they're doing that, as well as the exit and rejoining it on the south side. So any questions? Okay, so I think we're in agreement. So once we get to the end of this, I'm going to ask us all to sort of voice our agreement that we do this. I'm good with the head nods for now.
Thank goodness.
By the way, I talk all day long too, so when I get here. And Megan is just being quiet, hoping I don't ask her any questions. Land underwater, next waiver. Once again, this is for the temporary impacts, land underwater, removing 175 linear foot Beaver Brook culvert, decommissioning the RCP carrying the Beaver Brook's low flow, constructing a new open channel section of Beaver Brook. Temporary impacts will occur when clearing and grubbing, grading the site, installing utilities, landscaping, constructing wetland replacement, flood storage compensation areas. Permanent impacts to the 50-foot land underwater buffer are associated with constructing Surrey Lane and the associated Beaver Brook bridge crossing, retaining walls, and stormwater facilities in a section of one residential structure. So, once again, any questions? Okay. On to the next waiver. This is a riverfront area. So this is requested to allow the clearing, grubbing, grading, landscaping, construction of walls, roads, sidewalks, and a bridge, residential homes, other structures, driveways, stormwater facilities, and wetland replication areas within the riverfront area. Remember, there's 2 riverfront areas on this property. There's the eastern side, which is redevelopment because it's already degraded riverfront area, and the riverfront area on the western side, which is non-disturbed riverfront area. Both have separate things, but we've been through the calculations and what they're doing to minimize the impact in these areas. The other thing with the riverfront areas, it's not a 100-foot buffer, it's a 200. So it's a larger area, but all the calculations, we've seen them. I think we've had discussions and asked for some changes along the way, and we've proposed that. And so I think it meets all the guidelines for disturbance in the riverfront area, especially dividing the degraded riverfront area versus the redevelopment of degraded riverfront area versus the new riverfront area. Any questions? Okay, so next one is a buffer zone, previously undisturbed buffer zone. Proposed areas and activities within the 50-foot no disturbance of disturbed lands, including the construction of driveways, roadways, fences, and stormwater management facilities. Again, there's several areas where there's isolated lands, isolated vegetated wetlands and bordering vegetated wetlands where there is some work being done, not within the wetlands themselves. That we've already talked about those, but the bordering vegetated wetlands. So any questions?
Is there enhancement of the buffer zone, or is that just the vernal pool areas? I think there was some wildlife enhancement.
I think so, and yes, I think in this particular case there are. Let me just get to the avoidance and minimization measures, mitigation measures. They're increasing the vegetated riverfront area, vegetated banks. They're also going to clean up the degraded parts of the buffer zones that have the materials in them. There are 2 wetland replacement areas, mitigate projects. They've replaced at a ratio of 3 to 1. Minimum is 2 to 1, so they're exceeding that. You're going to obviously plant with a variety of trees, shrubs, ferns, and seed with a wetland seed mix. All sorts of coarse wood, such as tip-up mounds, etc. They're reconstructing the vegetated wetlands to be in a better condition than currently. So they're actually creating turtle nesting habitats as well, which we had talked about in our last meeting. So there's about 2 or 3 pages on this particular waiver request talking about these mitigation and replication measures. Next up is waiver from the vegetated wetlands, disturbance of vegetated wetlands associated with clearing, grubbing, grading the site, installing utilities, constructing the proposed roads, bridge, walls, a 4-foot by 2-foot area cross drain, residential structures, driveways, stormwater facilities, wetland mitigation areas, and landscaping.
And one of the previous meetings, we discussed the alteration of vegetated wetland within the ACEC was something that could be permitted as a limited project because they could not meet the performance standard of not altering the wetland in an ACEC, but they are replicating.
So should we be concerned about that, or only if we feel like they can't do this?
Nope, just adding it to the list of what they're doing.
Yep. Any questions, comments? Okay. The last one here is Vernal Pool. They're requesting a waiver from the Vernal Pool standards. They are not working in the vernal pools itself, which is just by definition is the mean high water plus 100 feet is the actual vernal pool definition. They're talking about working in the vernal pool buffer zones. There's 2 or 3 vernal pools and a potential vernal pool on this property. And so they are requesting to allow clearing, grubbing, grading, landscaping, construction of roads, sidewalks, walks. Wetland replication area B is actually in the vernal pool buffer zone. Stormwater facilities, residential structures and driveways within the 100-foot vernal pool A and vernal pool E buffer, and no work or activity will directly impact vernal pool A or vernal pool E for the first 100 feet upslope, which is the actual vernal pool under our bylaw. This is one of those cases where our bylaw is much more strict than the state. Requested for the allowance of the construction of new roadways, parking areas, sidewalks, residential structures, blah, blah, blah. I think I just said that. So this is one of those cases, and I think I'll probably sort of talk now. This is actually the last waiver that we, particularly in ACEC, have to be very diligent in our analysis and understand that, I talked earlier about adverse impacts, and I think that the applicant and us have all recognized that they can't do this project without some impact, right? To wildlife, to the wetlands. But I think what they've done is presented us with a proposal that has positives on the other side. And so what impacts, some of the impacts on some of the wetland habitat in vernal pool buffer zones have been in degraded areas, and they're proposing to improve those areas. There remains a significant upland habitat for both the vernal pool species as well as other species on site. And I think from my perspective, while there is an impact on especially wildlife habitat here, I believe that my assessment is that it's offset by the improvements in many other areas on site. So the overall impact to the population is neutral. So I don't think that we're seeing any impact to the vernal pool species population or the other populations that have it here. I'm not saying that an individual isn't going to get impacted, but I think the population as a whole is going to be not impacted. So that's the way I see it, with the daylighting of the stream and the work that's being done to get that stream in a much better shape than going through a culvert, and the cleanup work being done in the degraded areas on the western part of the property. If you've been out to walk the property, there's barrels and pieces of concrete and whatnot all over this piece of property, and it'll be great to clean that up. And they're talking about not just cleaning it up, but creating habitat for these animals to use. And if you looked at even something as precise as what kind of trees they were planting, instead of planting white oaks, which take 10 to 20 years to produce acorns, they chose a different species of oak that produce acorn in 3 to 5 years. And so I think that kind of thoughtfulness they've put into the project is an illustration of trying to minimize the impact in getting the habitat back to a state that is a positive for the species that are there. So I use that just as an example because it stood out to me yesterday when I was reading it. That kind of thoughtfulness about what species oak, because it takes a shorter time to produce acorns.
It's funny, I read that too, and I was struck by it because we're taking down a few shagbark hickory, and that's a huge deer food for them. And those to have that mindfulness, like, oh, we're gonna help these deer out and other animals that need these acorns quickly is key. That's a detail that we need for that sensitive area. So pretty cool.
I agree. Thank you. So any questions on the vernal pool?
Just make a note that LEC is our wetland consultant who reviewed the wildlife information and had a suggestion of post-construction monitoring and a condition that if there was more alteration to the vernal pool habitat than anticipated, there be some sort of mechanism to mitigate for that.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely would include that condition. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so this has all been peer reviewed by Wetland and Wildlife, and also on the stormwater side. So we've had a lot of people looking at this. We're 2+ years into this, so I think that actually we're a year into this permit. There was another permit before that got withdrawn and refiled. So, but it's 2.5 years for me. So I think from my perspective, I'd like to sort of just go around the room and have us vocalize that we believe the waiver requirements have been met in all 9 cases, the 7 waiver requests. And so that we can then sort of wrap that up. And then the next time we're in a position to have enough information to close this and vote, then we have to do that. I'll get a little bit into the sort of the mechanisms of how this stuff works, because we normally don't have to do this, but I'll tell you there. So from my standpoint, I believe that the waiver requirements have been met. And I'm willing to vocalize that and put on the record that I am. So
Yeah, and I believe the same. I think they've been met. This is an area I've kind of played around with for a long time, and this I've hem and hawed, and this is definitely the better outcome from what it could be. So
After a year plus of deliberation, I agree.
I agree that I think they're trying to do a good job on the overall project, and it should come out at least neutral, if not positive, in a lot of areas.
Agreed. So I think that given we took the new information, that a lot of it is details on plans that Jennifer has to take time to review. So we're going to continue tonight, at the very least, to 8/8. Jennifer, should we continue to 8/8, or should we go the next meeting beyond that?
Well, we're not meeting with Rick until after
Right.
the 8th.
Yeah, that was, and I sort of, even the timing, even if it wasn't just meeting with Rick, but meeting with Mike over the phone or Zoom or something, just the timing just wasn't going to.
It wouldn't work for me or Mike.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
So do we want to go to 8/22 on this?
I would anticipate that if we did that, we would be able to wrap it up.
So the only other option that we have, and I'll present it to the commission, is that we can close the hearing, but then once we close the hearing, we have to issue our decision within 20 days. Okay, so we can close the hearing, and that means no more new information can come in, and then Jennifer's going to have to scramble between now and August 15th.
It won't be now. It'll be between the 8th and the 15th.
I know, but I was going to get to that. Considering she's off for 2 of those weeks, it's really not anything. So that really isn't good for us to do that. The other thing, we could close on 8/8, but to be quite honest, I think that I'm more in favor of keeping it open in case something comes up in this meeting that needs us to get that information into the hearing.
give it a chance.
So from my perspective, I'd say let's continue to 8/22 and plan on evaluating whatever information we need to get there. I think we're at the end of the road here is getting new information. And if we get all the new information and we're satisfied with it, we can then decide to close on 8/22. And then also give Jennifer sufficient time to work on an order of conditions, right? So, I mean, she put together the initial draft of order of conditions. And we talked about a couple things here, but this is going to be a very long, order of conditions, and there's a lot of things we talked about, and there's things that the consultants talked about, and everything else we need to get into the order of conditions. And so that's my goal. I'd say let's continue to 8/22, target that as wrapping it up and voting.
I agree. I think that makes sense.
Okay, so any public comment, 560 Foundry Street? Okay, so seeing none, make a motion to continue 560 Foundry to, I assume, Megan, it's okay for us to continue to 8/22? I have to get your sort of semi-agreement on that.
Yeah, I think that's what makes sense based on the timeline for when Rick and I will be meeting with Jennifer and when Mike and Jennifer will be off vacation. So I think that's the most reasonable thing.
Very good. Make a motion to continue 560 Foundry to 8/22, August 22.
Carol, second.
Roll call.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that was quasi painful, but we got through it.
Roy, can I make a motion for a 5-minute recess?
Second. Roll call vote.
Second. Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye. We'll be back here at 8:50 p.m.
Thank you, everyone.
Just turn your video and audio on. This was
In my face.
this was a test to see how much Jennifer could eat before we got back on. Okay, so
The same idea, and I was like, no.
Jennifer, I should have made it like a 7-minute break. We would have gotten it all.
so
Pretty
we're
close.
we're coming back from our recess, so I appreciate it. Next up is 41 to 60 Indian Cove Way.
They requested a continuance to 8/22.
Make a motion to continue 41 to 60 Indian Cove Way to 8/22.
Carol, second.
Call Phillips, Carol will be second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Call Phillips, aye. 45 to 63 Village Street.
Also requested continuance to August 22nd.
Make a motion to continue 4563 Village Street to 8/22.
Mike, you take this one.
Spady, a second.
Call Phillips, Spady, a second. Roll call vote.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Call Phil's aye. Next up is a certificate of compliance for 300 Foundry Street. This was a construction of a duplex home. Which one of these individuals?
I brought up Walter.
Okay, good enough. Walter, you're up. You can turn on your video and your audio. If there's someone else you want us to bring up, let us know.
Can you hear me yet?
Yeah.
Okay, how about the video?
Yep.
All right. Oh, I'm in a different setup right now, so my apologies. Good evening, Conservation Commission, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Walter Hermano. Tonight, I'm a registered engineer, always, but representing Riverfront Land Surveyors. We're before you for the applicant, which is the Affordable Housing Trust. The client is the BAMSI, and the contractor is Global Property Contractors. We have a property at 300 Foundry Street. Would you like me to give the history from the beginning, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I'd keep it as brief as possible, but yes, I think it would be appreciated to at least a couple of members of the commission that are familiar with the nature of the
I'd be glad to. All right. Not too many years ago, the project was started as a sports complex for the town of Easton. It was a volunteer group. They crossed an intermittent stream and cleared a portion of the uplands on this subject site. That did not come to fruition. The town owns the land, and then they eventually sold it to the BAMSI organization. BAMSI had proposed a group home, 8-bedroom duplex, and this is for individuals with disabilities. All right, there's an extensive permitting process that we have gone through for this project. It's a 15.74 acre site involving an intermittent stream, BVW, PVB, natural habitat area, and also an ACEC. So we have a full host of environmental resources that we had to contend with and obtain the necessary permitting. The development portion of the property is about 1.84 acres. And of that remaining land, roughly 12.5 acres, it was conservation land that's to be deeded to the town. Permitting process, we started with MIPA. We went through them with a MIPA filing, and there was no ENF required. We've been before Natural Heritage and submitted a conservation and management permit. They determined that there was going to be a take, but it would be a net benefit. We then proceeded with a special permit with the Easton Planning Board, and at the same time, NOI filing with the Easton Conservation Commission. The site design was peer reviewed. And after 1 or 2, maybe 3 meetings total, I believe we had an order of conditions that was issued. We also received a special permit from the planning board. Since then, the contractors on the project have completed the project. They've completed the building and significantly conformed to the permitted design for the project. The project included 2 biocells for stormwater best management practices, grass channel, pocket constructed wetland, gravel diaphragm. And with this, there was a replication area of over 2 to 1 that's been proposed. The replication area has not been started yet. There's also a substantial crossing on the project. We have a 10-foot span by 4-foot high by 26-foot wide concrete culvert over an intermittent stream with a significant cement block wall that's come out very nice, very nice. Again, the design has followed the, the construction has followed the design substantially. And we have also items that are remaining that I've discussed and walked through with Jennifer Carlino out on the site, include vegetation of the biocells in the constructed wetland per the approved plan, reseeding of the grass channel and the slopes where required, and the replication area, which I stated before, has not been started yet, but we intend to take care of all of these in the beginning of the fall season. The contractor has also made progress. I was out there last week. They had to raise the berm on the constructed wetlands in one particular side about 6 inches to a foot. So it met the approved design on the plan. And I oversaw that construction and noted that they had that completed. There will be a final as-built. We've submitted 1 to you so far, but there will be a final as-built noting any of these minor issues once they are completed. So they've also submitted a cash surety in order and a signed agreement, and that is by BAMSI. There was a check delivered today for that cash surety. And this is all in efforts to obtain their certificate of compliance because they need a certificate of occupancy from the building department, and the building inspector has indicated that he's found essentially, I believe, there was nothing wrong with the construction of the building. He said it was a great job, well done. And this is the remaining item that he needs in order to issue the certificate of occupancy. And that brings us up to where we are today.
Okay,
Thank you.
Jennifer?
Yeah, so Walter, when were we out there? Wednesday, Thursday, something like that?
Excuse me, Jennifer?
When were we on the site? Was it Wednesday or Thursday?
We were out there Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay. And so in that time, they've raised the berm.
That's correct.
Okay, how did they stabilize it?
I'm not sure if they finished raising the berm. Okay, but they were adding soil to it when I left the property.
Okay. I'm just asking because Friday when I left, I hadn't heard anything. So whatever new information we're receiving about placing up the bond, which we hadn't finished negotiating the actual amount and what's supposed to be included in the bond. So I'm a little surprised that there was a check today and a signed agreement. So what else was provided with that? Did you redo the letter with the amounts on it?
The letter has been reviewed by BAMSI, and I added a couple of pieces of information I believe you had highlighted in yellow, and then they completed the rest of it. And through Joe Palucci, who I think is at the meeting tonight, they completed that agreement, had BAMSI sign it and deliver it to the commission today, to the town on Monday.
Yeah, so that was the draft agreement, and you were gonna finish the letter and add the rest of the items that had to be completed with the cost estimate so we could see what it was before we finalized it. So just I understand they gave us the signed agreement, but do we have the letter that says what the rest of the work is and the cost for it so we know that's the actual amount? You kind of skipped a step. They jumped in and signed it and brought us a check, but we didn't finish reviewing what's left to be done. So.
Right, now I know it was completed, and inside your letter, there's a list of items that you had remaining,
Yep.
and I updated that.
Okay, so that's something you submitted to us today.
Yes.
Okay. Not having seen it, so what was the amount that the bond was for?
They gave a cash surety. They delivered a check. And
Yep, but was the amount?
Joe, can you speak to that? Is Joe Palucci on? Can you bring him up? Please, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, he's coming in.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, just turn on your video for me too. That'd be good.
Let's see.
There you go.
Yeah, just that. Hi, my name is Joe Palucci. I'm with Global Property Services. So we're the developer on the job, and I'm speaking on behalf of BAMSI tonight. So to answer your question, Jennifer, the amounts that Walter had come up with was just over $60,000. So we had updated that within the letter that Walter had put together. BAMSI had taken that agreement, signed it today by their CFO, had it notarized, and cut a check for that exact amount, 60,000, almost 61,000. We hand delivered that down to the town office today, so it's in your hands down there.
Okay.
And we actually emailed a copy of it as well. So I don't know if you've checked your email, but we scanned it and emailed it over to everybody.
Okay, and you think 60,000 is enough to do the wetland replication area that hasn't been started yet?
I think it's more than enough, actually. We've actually already bought all the plantings, so we've actually paid for the plantings ourselves. So we actually have them sitting, waiting to go in. The weather's just too hot right now to do them. So, so all the remaining items, as Walter had mentioned, are exterior items that it's just a little hot right now to do them. As far as this house goes, it's a home for an ABI home. It's an acquired brain injury home for DDS.
We understand that, thank you. Yeah, I mean, not having the wetland replication done, it's not, I wouldn't call that a minor thing, but you are putting the funding in place for the surety, and you're proposing to do that immediately in the fall, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else, Rory. With the surety, it should be completed in a timely fashion.
Yeah, so just as a question here, and Walter misspoke at one point saying that the construction was done, the building construction, he corrected himself. But I think one of the things, just as a feedback from us, is that it was agreed upon that the replication would actually start in the first growing season. I know the last year and a half has been a tough one on all of us for many different reasons, not just on the construction side of things, but everything we're dealing with, with the global pandemic and everything else. But there's a couple things with this property, and Walter alluded to one of them. One is that Natural Heritage indicated that this would result in a take, right? So this is a rare species habitat, and it resulted in a take. Now we've done what we needed to do. There's a conservation we need to have a conservation and management plan put in place as part of that natural heritage approval. I don't know that we have clear illustration that we're actually doing that yet. And additionally, within the last 3 years or so, we actually, I think about three and a half years ago, you couldn't even applied for a permit for this piece of property because our regulations prohibited anywhere where there was rare species to actually apply for the permit. So we actually modified the regulations, not for this project, but because we thought that as a commission that we could handle making that decision, given that, we'd get the analysis from natural heritage and determine what to do, and we've done that. And I say that because of, I just want you to understand where we're coming from. You know, we went out on a limb to put these kind of projects in front of us, take responsibility for protecting the wildlife habitat and the rare species. And it's, so when you get a little bit of pushback from us on this type of thing, where you're trying to get into the building, appropriately so, I understand. You're getting a little bit of pushback on us. We're just trying to sort of elevate the importance of the wetland work, and it sort of feels like it was pushed off to the side to accelerate other portions of it. And that's just,
Well, if I could come on to that for a quick minute, just to back up for a minute, this project wasn't something that we actually brought to the table. This was an RFP, if you remember, that the town put forward. The town put forward an RFP that we responded to. In that RFP, nothing about the national heritage was mentioned. That's something we found out after the fact, that there was actually turtles and salamanders. Why it wasn't in the original project, I'm not sure. It's something we can address another day. But in that 70-page filing, there was nothing to do with the national heritage. So that was an additional step that BMZ undertook at a cost of literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to satisfy that condition. It wasn't put off. We didn't put it off till the end purposely. During this period of time, with COVID hitting, trying to get somebody from national heritage to respond or to come out was almost impossible. So at that point, knowing that we had 8 individuals ready to go in the home, we focused more on the home and getting the actual structure of the home built, knowing that national heritage, once they were back in session, once we could get them to come back out, they would address that portion of it. So it wasn't that this portion wasn't considered important or wasn't put off. It was just the fact that what was under our control was the physical structure of the house. And as we mentioned, because it's been delayed for so long, we're at a point now where we have 8 families calling on a daily basis, asking when they can move in. So that's why we're pushing back a little bit, just asking. To Walter's point,
I actually don't have a problem with you pushing back a little bit. Okay, and I appreciate the lengths you went to in the last few days to get the cash surety bond in place. It's just with the timing and everything else, it's a little bit sort of, you know, jarring maybe to us, but in understanding that, and I understand that, and maybe at some point you sort of feel too that, you know, you were pushed a little harder than you expected on this particular thing. But I'm trying to give you the perspective on that. I didn't put out the RFP. I wish, you know, someone had come to us. I think we knew this property had this kind of habitat on it. So I apologize for me, although I didn't have anything to do with it, that you had to undergo that particular portion of the property, or BAMC had to incur additional costs. So from my perspective, I'm just trying to give you perspective of why maybe some of this you feel like we pushed pretty hard on this, and part of it is because this was a major portion of this particular permitting process for us. And so it was probably 90% of the permitting process for us.
Mr. Chair, may I make a comment, please?
Sure.
All right, thank you very much. I do appreciate all your input, and the protection of the endangered or threatened species is always important to my client and myself. We have complied with the Natural Heritage construction management permit in regards to protection of the endangered or threatened species. We've had a siltation fence and silt sock in place about the site from day one, before the migratory season for the Blandings turtle, which this is subject to. And that's been in place and inspected, not just by myself, but also by our consultant from Garden Environmental, at least on 2 different occasions. So we can assure you, we've taken measures to protect the endangered and threatened species.
And I've been out on the site and I've seen them. So I do appreciate that. And, in that, and I think that the stream crossing has turned out as we expected it. So, I mean, I think that the appropriate measures have been put in place to go there. So I'm just trying to give perspective from our perspective, why you got pushed a little bit on this when maybe you didn't expect to. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from the commission? So I think we're talking about issuing a partial certificate of compliance with a cash surety bond of 60,000 plus. It's already been delivered to us. No question. Any public comment? 300 Foundry Street. Seeing none, make a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance with a cash surety bond to cover the work that still needs to be completed at 300 Foundry Street.
Second,
Caulfield, Benson, second. Roll call.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I appreciate it, and I appreciate what you're doing for the community as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great night.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Enforcement. Acceptance of deed for 300 Foundry gift of land. So one of the things with 300 Foundry was that they had to they gifted us somewhere. Sorry, it's over 10 acres. Is it over 10?
12.
Yeah.
0.5 maybe.
Somewhere around there. And so we have to vote to accept that land as a gift. We then accept it. It then goes to the Board of Selectmen for them to accept it on behalf of the town, and it will then be part of it. So, any questions or concerns about gifting that land? The draft deed in there, there's just the names of the selectmen are a couple years old. So.
I had corrected that, and then they emailed back the old version, which is why I wanted to go over it before they signed it.
Okay. So is it okay for us to vote on this?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? I don't think I need public comment on this, right? No, it's not a hearing.
No.
Of course, the public wants to, just raise your hand at any time and I'll be happy to recognize. Make a motion to accept the gift of land for 300 Foundry Street.
Spady,
Carol,
second.
second.
Caulfield, Spady, a second. Call.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye. Enforcement on 55 Quanticut.
I don't think the gentleman is here. And if he's not here, then can I suggest we skip forward or take one thing out of order? Because Alyssa Longo's been on the meeting the whole time for virtually the last thing. So maybe we pop that up so she can get out of here.
That sounds reasonable.
I'm happy to take Alyssa Longo out of order. How's that?
Do we have to vote on that?
No,
Just bring her up so she can go.
that's what I did. She should be here any second. There she is.
Okay, awesome. You guys can see me and hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer, for letting us skip ahead a bit. My name's Alyssa Longo. I'm an engineer with Environmental Partners, and we're representing the town Department of Public Works for the PFAS treatment project down at wells 1, 2, and 4R. So tonight we're just requesting a minor modification to what was originally approved. We're requesting to shift the location for driveway expansion. So I can share my screen if you want me to just go through the proposed changes.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just keep it brief.
Yep, don't worry. Okay. So what I'm showing here, this was the original approved plan. So you can see in the middle here, we had proposed some clearing and some addition of gravel part of which was within the 100-foot buffer of the wetlands. And we were proposing this expansion just so that carbon trucks can access the treatment site. This is a critical piece of the treatment plant. So we need to make sure these trucks, which are up to 70 feet long, make sure they can get access to the plant at least once a year when they come in to change out that carbon. So unfortunately, once the contractor actually got out there and notified DigSafe, they found a gas main which runs right along the side of the road and makes it dangerous to do any clearing there. So we had to start looking at expanding the driveway on the other side, which brings us closer to the wetlands. And this is the proposed sketch. So before we were showing the clearing and gravel here, and now we've moved it closer to the wetlands. So a portion of the clearing and the gravel is gonna be within the 50-foot buffer. A portion is still within the 100-foot buffer, but nothing we're proposing is actually within the wetlands. I think at the closest, we're about 30 to 35 feet away from the wetlands themselves.
Okay. I have no questions. Anybody else?
None.
Okay, any public comment? Minor modification. I would consider this a minor mod, so. You want us to vote on it? Yes, I'll vote on it. I'll make a motion to consider the modification minor.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, oh, sorry.
Benson, I.
Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's aye.
I'm still not used to you going last, Rory.
I know. Melissa, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night.
55 Pequannocket. I don't, so we're just gonna.
I would say table it because he
Was he asked to come tonight?
he was supposed to be here at the
Yeah.
last meeting, and he asked to continue to this meeting because he would be away.
Okay. Jennifer?
Yeah, then you just have a couple of notes here for Mass Environmental Policy Act is MEPA. And that's when larger projects go before all the state agencies and all the public, anyone, not just abutters, can provide comments on that. So Owl Ridge Estates was finally submitted for MEPA review, 7/26. So tomorrow at 1 o'clock, there's the public meeting and it's via Zoom. I think I forwarded that to you in case any of you wanted to attend. I've already submitted our comment letter that just basically says we've already reviewed the project, we've issued the permit, and we didn't have any additional questions. The other one is for the warehouse at 530 Turnpike Street. That on-site meeting was last week. And I've also already provided those comments, basically saying we're still reviewing the project. Stormwater management is being peer reviewed, and we didn't have any other comments at the time.
Okay. I'm going to try and make the MEPA meeting tomorrow if I can. Something work doesn't get interrupted. We'll see what happens. Okay, so next up is meeting minutes. I think the 6/6 ones are still in sort of a state of edit. And so I propose that we table those for this meeting. 6/27, there were two minor changes. The first one was under 274 Washington Street. The last sentence is just missing the word "not." It says Mr. Caulfield's recommended that the order contain a condition for some pump hose to not discharge into a drainage ditch. So, just to not discharge. And on page 5, under 345 Center Street, the motion was made to continue 345 Center Street to July 11th, just as a motion to, and that was blank, so just a motion to continue. So any other comments on 627? So if so, I just make a motion to approve the minutes for 627 with those minor changes.
Benson, second.
Caulfield's Benson, second. Roll call.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Beatty, aye.
Caulfield's aye. The one other thing, just at some point here, we have a 1 or 2 executive session minutes that we've approved but haven't released. We should just talk about when we get to that point. I don't think we're there yet, but we're getting. Okay.
Okay.
Chair update, I have no updates. If I had them, I'd keep them to myself. CPC, it's been a long day, everybody. The CPC update from Al, you got anything for us? Al attended his first meeting. Oh, can't hear you. There you go. Good job. There you go.
No, we were just carrying on some of the projects to the next step in the process. Mike and I should get together on his idea on the Tufts Farm, but I think it's a little late in this annual sequence to try to get a new idea before them. So maybe we'll spend some time and be sure to get it on the agenda for next year. And any other projects, we should start thinking about them now, so they'll be in a position to table with the CPA. One other thing, that finance looks like it's not going to be as easy as it was in previous years. The state, because of higher allocations to larger number of communities, is significantly reduced from where it was previously. So we should look at an allocation for annual budgeting of around $2 million. So, and we've had one of the things else I'd like to bring up is just the school has tabled projects probably equal to $2 million for recreational activity outdoors. So that's all I have.
Great. Jennifer?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have put those down as updates, but it's all right. 9 Hobart Way, they did have a change, a minor modification, but it did require a plan change. So they actually moved the house or the garage further away from the wetland and closer to the neighbor's house.
Okay. Any questions on Hobart? One of our favorite properties. Make a motion to designate the modification as minor for Jennifer to administratively approve 9 Hobart Way.
Carol, second.
Caulfield's with Carol with the loud second. Roll call vote.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Beatty, aye.
Caulfield's aye.
And then 507 Foundry also had a minor modification. When they came before us, they said they were only going to take out the islands for the concrete and patch. They weren't going to rip up the whole driveway, but they've done that apparently at the request of the planning board, but they did not come back and change their plans with us. So this is just to correct that.
Any questions? Make a motion to designate the modification minor for 507 Foundry for Jennifer to administratively approve.
Benson, second.
Roll call.
Benson, aye.
Carol, I.
Beatty, aye.
Caulfield's aye.
And obviously we're here so we can continue remote meetings.
It's currently extended through March 31st, 2023. And if anybody ever wants to talk about the ridiculous politicalness that went on in extending this, I'd be happy to have that conversation.
No, thanks.
I need one more motion.
Motion to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Ooh, gotcha.
Okay, Spadia with Benson for the second. Roll call.
Benson, I.
Errol, I.
ADI.
Caulfield's aye. Jennifer, thank you so much for taking your time today. I really do appreciate it. It really means a lot to me. So I know it took a lot out of your day. And plus it went an hour longer than maximum. So I do appreciate
A
it.
lot out of your day.
We just have to share really cool